We'll fall out here if you're not careful. Hello and welcome back to just another football podcast. Deadline day special at the time of recording, about 3 hours out from the end of the transfer window. I'm joined by Ali tonight. The others unfortunately aren't here, but Ali is. So,
Yes,
how you doing,
sir.
Ali?
I'm glad to be here. Deadline day in the summer was wild. What happened while we recorded that time, if our listeners remember. And yeah, this time there is some incredibly weird transfers, I think.
It's been
So
bonkers.
it's been
It's been a
absolutely
bonkers day.
mental.
It's been a bonkers window, if I'm honest with you. It's always
Yeah.
an interesting time in January because obviously you see some wild stuff going on. Partly because you're mid-season, and it kind of means the psychology around buying and selling players, is not what it's like in the summer. You've obviously got teams like Newcastle who have got a lot of money and desperately need players, and it's
hmm
just created like an interesting dynamic. We'll get into that stuff soon, but we'll start as ever, I say as ever, as we have been doing in the last few weeks with the AFCON appetizer. And it's been a pretty
Yeah.
decent week since we last recorded, Ali, for your country.
Bloody hell. I am gobsmacked by what Egypt have been able to do. We're in the semi-final. So if you recall, before the Ivory Coast game, so last episode, I was like, Ivory Coast are favorites for the tournament. Harry, I think Ivory Coast will win. And then we win on penalties.
Yeah,
And
Eric
then
Bailey,
Eric,
foolish effort that was.
I didn't understand it.
I've
Like
never seen a penalty quite like it.
I have, I've seen worse. There is a bit of an anecdote in that, in terms of Egypt's record with penalty kicks. So we won against Ivory Coast in the penalty shootout in the AFCON final 2006. There were a few foolish efforts in that one too.
Yeah.
But much more recently, Club World Cup 2020.
Hmm.
Al Ahly, Egyptian, massive Egyptian side, or like record African Champions League holders, were playing in the third place playoff, which is a big deal actually for them over there, against
Yeah.
Palmeiras, and there was this meme of a penalty that someone took. I can't recall his name, but it was he made the Neymar run up, but it was a
Yeah.
lot
Of
more
course.
elaborate. Like he took a few quick steps to the side, and then like ran in place, and then sprinted to the ball, and then did a huge like twice the size of the Jorginho hop, and then just passed it to the goalkeeper. And
Yeah.
that ended up costing them the penalty shootout. So
Wild.
I've seen worse. It was a good save by the substitute goalkeeper Gabaski,
Mm.
who was introduced to that game because our starting goalkeeper El Shenawi got injured. We progressed to the quarterfinal where, guess what? Gabaski gets injured. So we were playing with our third choice goalkeeper
Third choice
and will
keeper.
do so for the remainder of the tournament. It looks like, at least anyway. Now he's the starting goalkeeper for a club called Farco, in Egypt, recently
Yeah.
promoted to the Premier Division. And Higazi got injured too, so we've had our back four injured throughout the tournament. So we have 6 injuries, so 2 goalkeepers, 4 defenders for the remainder of the tournament. So we're very, very thin at the back. But we're still
Mm.
doing well. Look, we've still only conceded that one goal and then the penalty in the Morocco game, which we won 2-1. So next up is Cameroon on the 3rd of February. Still pretty nervous about our prospects,
Yeah,
not
big
gonna
game.
lie.
That's
Massive
the
game
hosts.
against the hosts. It's gonna be in the capital. I still don't think we're capable of winning the tournament. I agree with Mo Salah, who said the same thing after the Nigeria game,
Yeah.
which was bold of him, but it might have been a deliberate strategy that worked because
Mm.
we've seen improvements game on game. Against Nigeria, we didn't string a couple of passes together. Weird tactical decisions like playing Salah as essentially a target man. Um, our starting striker Mustafa Mohammed down the right hand side, and then he did the same in the second game, but we were bailed out with a Mo Salah volley. And then Yeah, but we've seen like improvements in terms of being able to make passing combinations. Chemistry wise, I think we've improved, but the Egypt Morocco game was one of the worst games of football quality wise I have ever seen in my entire life. All that being said, we won. It's fine, but it was a slog. The pitch was awful. The refereeing was incredibly lenient, and there was stoppages. There were fights. It's just a hard watch, but we got there.
Yeah, I mean, it's all that matters in knockout football, isn't it? I mean, you saw England in the
Absolutely,
Euros just winning games by one goal, pretty much all the way to the final, nearly got it done.
absolutely.
Um, it's all that matters in international football. It's rarely thrilling.
Yeah.
It was interesting. One of the things that stood out for me is that because it's interesting. You watch some players like they go away on international duty and they just turn into different players.
Mm.
But then I watch El Neni and people still run past him like he's a training ground mannequin. So I was glad to see that there's not a discrepancy in his
Hey,
performances for
at least
Egypt and for
offensively,
Arsenal.
El Neni got man of the match in the Morocco game, and I think he
I don't
deserved
know
it.
how.
Um, Here's the thing: everyone was awful.
Yeah, I just
That's the thing. Like even Hakimi was,
mm, yeah,
he won the penalty, but he won the penalty. Deliberate action
tidy
there.
enough, but
Uh,
yeah, it's yeah, he's the same player at least for Egypt that he is for Arsenal. But I mean, I'm sure that he's probably more important to them than he is to us, where he just kind of sits around and hangs around, so to speak. I mean, it's another transfer deadline day, nothing to be heard from him, so he'll be staying for another window.
deservedly so. He should be starting.
Yeah.
If you ask me.
Don't start. Um,
Nope.
Success for one of your international teams,
Yes.
not so much for the other, with the USA against Canada in the CONCACAF. It's interesting because I saw actually your take on the game last night was a bit more measured because I follow a few American accounts,
Mm.
primarily for golf actually, but they also cover football, well, or soccer as you guys call it,
Golf,
and
what
they
a
weren't
boring
pleased
sport
with the
that is.
performance at all. Watch it, watch it. We're gonna fall out.
I knew that
Um,
would get you started.
we'll
Anyway.
fall out here if you're not careful. But they weren't particularly pleased with the performance, whereas you seem to understand it a bit more in the context of the game itself. Canada were pretty good by all accounts. I
Yeah.
didn't actually catch the game; I only saw bits of it. I saw our soon-to-be second goalkeeper was pretty suspect on the first goal of his
Ooh.
positioning, and it just
Well,
went through his hands. It wasn't great. He didn't cover himself in glory.
well,
Um,
Harry.
yeah, but people were raving about Canada. They seem to think that they're onto something there.
Oh, they definitely are. Canada didn't even reach the final stage of qualification for the 2018 World Cup. That's one of the quickest turnarounds I can remember about a national team.
Mm,
Such an amazing group of players. The kind of scouting of players from different places who might qualify for Canada, and being able to attract European based players. Um,
mm,
and then they also have the MLS based strikers, Kyle Larin, who's now their top goal scorer ever and scored that first goal. He was in the MLS at Orlando City, went to Besiktas. Does
yeah.
amazing for Canada. Like him and Jonathan David are basically on the same level when it comes to performance for the Canada national team.
Hmm.
What a performance as well! Just in in that game individually, you look at the team sheets and you still think, America have got the U.S. have got the upper hand. Canada just outperformed us in every single way, without Alfonso Davis.
Yeah.
Here's the thing too: um, we should have, on an individual game basis, we should have done a lot better
Mm,
in terms of a plan. You had Jesse Zardes. That's someone I kind of want to focus on. Starting, he has been pretty awful for us for a long time. Ricardo Pepi was on the bench. You probably heard of Ricardo Pepi,
yeah.
his amazing start to his international career. But
Hmm.
people like Pepi, Kellen Acosta was on the bench. DeAndre Yedlin was on the bench. I thought DeAndre Yedlin should be starting. Has performed well over like the last international break. Here's the thing as well. Yunus Musa on the side of Adekupe, who was absolutely immense. Plays for some team in Turkey. I can't recall. Let me pull up the name of the Turkish team here. You probably haven't heard of it before. Hatayspor. No, me neither. I've never heard of that team before. Man of the match. Man of the match. This guy should be playing somewhere else. And he gave Serginho Dest a run for his money, and Yunus Musa, who's the right-hand side of the midfield. Cool, it was a hard watch. It was a hard watch. They just dominated us all game.
Yeah, it was a good performance from them. All right up to the game. I've seen seem to be raving about Canada. I mean, where does that leave? Before we sort of move on, where does that leave the CONCACAF? It's quite tight, isn't it, with the table now?
Yes, very tight. Canada are on 22 points. I think they've practically qualified for the World Cup. So you have 3 automatic spots, and then you have half a team. So the team that finishes 4th place, another qualifier with, it might be Asia or Oceania. Poor from me not to fact check this one, but here we go. 3.5 teams. So it's the US, and then it's Canada, 22 points. The US and Mexico are on 18, so 4 behind. Panama are on 17, that half team. We don't want to be in a position where we are playing an additional qualifier. So that game was really important. I mean, for playing a team that we hadn't lost to in World Cup qualifiers for 30 years, pretty poor. And then Mexico were held, to our luck, or maybe not, but they were held against Panama to a 0-0 draw.
They both dropped points, yeah.
They both dropped points.
Tight. It's tight. How many games are left?
How many games? So we have 7. There's 14 games, so there's 4 games left.
4 games
this cycle. So, yeah, that's why I say Canada are undefeated so far. Goal difference of 12. Second best goal difference is us with 6. They are on 22 points. I don't see anyone giving them a challenge if they keep how they're performing. Their 4-3-1-2 system is immense, especially, this was a surprising one. There's a DM called Estacchio, who didn't start last night. Yesterday. Mark Anthony Kay from Colorado Rapids started for them. I didn't think he was as capable as Estacchio in terms of protecting the back 4, but also distribution-wise, which is, a standout quality of Estacchio. But if they start him, guaranteed wins. Okay, just
there you go.
On and on.
There you go. There's your CONCACAF bonus roundup.
Thank
you for that, Ali.
Yeah, you're welcome, man.
Covered the international football pretty well. I mean, there's no domestic football going on at the moment. Well, at least not in the top flight. Anyone that watches, the Championship and below will probably be berating me right now, telling me that that is in fact the real football in this country. But I didn't mean to offend anyone there. But obviously, the main talking point as we started the podcast with has been the transfer window, and no more relevant than on deadline day where it's just an absolute frenzy of stuff going on. I mean,
it's immense.
It really is. It's crazy. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. I mean, we'll get into some of the stuff that's gone on today, but just to kind of ask you more broadly, I suppose, to kick this conversation off. Is there a team / teams where you look at their business this January and think, yeah, they've had a good window, they've really improved, and they kind of stand out as, I want to say, winning the window, a winner of the transfer window? They've gone in and strengthened, and they look better for it coming out of it.
Predictably so, Newcastle United. I mean, we all who'd have thunk it? They have one of the richest countries in the world literally owning them. But yeah, they have made one of the weirdest transfers of all time, I think. Bruno Guimaraes. No, I have no idea. I'll come off as frustrated because I'm not the biggest fan.
Mate, you're frustrated.
Corruption.
You're frustrated. I mean,
Who
I like.
thinks so? Who thinks so?
I have to say, from an Arsenal perspective, obviously it's quite relevant. We've been linked with this guy. We've tracked this guy for years,
Oh,
and there's your opportunity to go in and potentially get a deal done. And they end up paying 50 million, I think, with add-ons or whatever, 50 million euros.
yes,
So like not
40.
crazy money. I mean, and there's Newcastle tax on that as well. I think you're going to find this with clubs selling to Newcastle. They are going to ask for that bit extra over the top because, well, they know they have it, right? And it was quite funny actually. Like it was a classic all us negotiating tactic where you basically had Leon come out and make a public statement about how the transfer hadn't been concluded when loads of journalists were reporting it was basically agreed, and then they ended up getting an extra 15 million or whatever it was out of it. Um,
Mm.
Very good player by the looks of it. Very well-rounded player, very progressive, very combative, carries the ball, passes the ball well, wins it back. Physically good. I suppose the only thing I'm looking at, and probably similar to you, I'm looking at it and you're just thinking, how? I mean, I know the financial side of it. They're paying him something like four times what he was on at Lyon, which I don't know. Like maybe a player's motivation is that as a 23-year-old. But if I'm him, I'm just looking at it and thinking, come the summer, you're going to have all. If you keep doing what you're doing in Ligue 1 and putting up the numbers he has been, putting in the performances he has been, Lyon aren't going to be in the Champions League next season by the looks of it. I think they're 11th in the table as things stand. Um, he's going to have all sorts of suitors after him. And look, maybe that Newcastle project, quote unquote, and we can discuss that in a second, is appealing to players because they look at it and they can maybe project 3 or 4 years time and think we're going to be in a good position. But at the moment, on face value, he's joining a team that are 18th in the table, and their manager is the jury's out. I still think, to be honest with you, the squad is a bit of a mishmash. I think in terms of what they've recruited and what's there already. It's just a questionable one. I mean, it's a great signing for Newcastle in terms of they've been able
Absolutely.
to get a very, very good player, but it's just bizarre to me. I don't know how this has been able to happen, to be quite honest with you.
I don't understand it. So if he is thinking, "Oh, this is the start of something," I could be like one of the early Man City signings, uh, that can take Newcastle to the next level, and then we'll be in the Champions League in no time. Then he is being exceptionally naive. Oh
Yeah,
man, I find it bizarre that he's taking this decision. He is Champions League. He's not even Champions League ready. He is Champions League level and beyond. Like he is a world leading progressive passer. He is a world leading defensive midfield defensively.
hmm
Extremely capable dribbler. Like he is a complete set of a midfielder that will improve any team in the world, not just Arsenal, if he'd gone to Arsenal, which would have been
yeah.
a much better prospect for him going to Arsenal than Newcastle
At the
freaking
moment,
United.
yeah,
Like Newcastle might as well go down. Still, they
yeah.
might find themselves getting relegated. Are their additions enough to prevent that? I don't
I don't
know.
think
Well, I think
definitively.
we'll see how the rest of the day pans out. They've improved in left back in adding Target.
Yeah, Target. So Target's a better left back than what they've got. I think Dan Burn. While I have questions about his kind of physical limitations, as much as he is a bit of a man mountain, I don't think he's particularly quick.
Yeah.
He reminds me a bit of Mertesacker actually in terms of like being really tall, but they're not particularly agile. He's not like hugely strong, at least not for a man his size.
Hmm.
And he plays in a very good system at Brighton, so you sort of think, well, take him out of that, and is he the same player? But he's better than what they've got.
Hmm.
Chris Wood's a really questionable one for me, and I think they know that, and that they've been linked with another striker since, but it's one of those where they've maybe weakened a rival. Trippier, similar to Target, probably much better than the fullbacks they've got.
Yeah.
So they've upgraded in most positions, definitely. But I don't think that guarantees them survival. I think
Not
there's
at
still a
all.
lot of uncertainty around it all. And when you look at Bruno, I mean, can you imagine they get relegated? I mean,
And there
all
isn't a
the
relegation
sounds.
release clause on
I
his
was going to
contract
say
as
all,
well,
all the
as
all the
far as I
noises
understand.
around it. that there isn't a clause, as you said, there isn't a clause in his contract where there's a breakout clause if they get relegated, and it's just baffling. It is baffling to me that they've been able to pull it off. But I mean, it's a real snip for them. He's a great player, as you said. He could fit into a lot. I think he could play for most of the top six teams if you judge him purely on what he's done at Lyon
I would
and
have
judge
loved
him as a
him at
player. You don't
Liverpool,
know
for
what his
example.
like character and temperament is like. Obviously, there's a load of uncertainty around that, and I'm not suggesting there's anything untoward. But you can't really judge a player till he plays for you. But if you're projecting, I think he would have been a very good fit for a lot of those teams. Um, and Newcastle have done really well to get him. So in terms
Yeah,
of a deal, yeah, I think you're right to go to that one
it's
first.
weird. It's weird. Like
If you're,
Bruno Guimaraes will be forever imprinted in my head as weird. Like
yeah,
that's something I tweeted out, and it held true after the
and if
transfer
they
was
go on
confirmed. God.
to make a success, which I think everyone expects them to do, given the budgets they're going to be working with in the upcoming years, um, it's probably going to be the signing you look at and you think like that was the one that kind of moved that was when you think of Man City and it was Robinho, that was kind of the first signing for them where you thought, okay,
The
they're here, they're
spark.
here not to mess about.
Yeah.
I know he's a centre midfielder and it like maybe isn't, it's not a flair position, but when you compare him to like what they have in there in Willock and Shelby and I
Oh,
don't it's Longstaff still. I mean, it's just you're talking about a player from another stratosphere. He's such an upgrade.
yeah. He's two or
Um,
three levels above, 3, 4 levels above. If we're talking like championship level in the Premier League, realistically should go down. Bottom half, trying not to avoid a relegation scrap, or are in a
yeah,
relegation scrap. Solid, really mid-table, fighting for Europe, Champions League level, could be a league winner. Bruno Guimaraes is on the league winner category. Like
yeah, he's
he
definitely. I think
could
he could play in
fit
the Champions League. I
right
think he has played
in.
in the Champions League.
He hasn't.
He played in a Lyon team that were close to the title last year.
Yeah,
He's played in the Champions League. So
he could have
and
fit
he's played at
right
elite
into
level.
Liverpool, for example. He would have
I
been by
think
far the best midfielder at Arsenal.
I think the only question mark I kind of have about this signing is in terms of like how he profiles, and it's a wider discussion I think for Newcastle in particular. Is when I look at the signings they've made, it's been less about right. This is our manager. This is the system he plays. This is how we want to play football, and we're going to sign players that complement that way of playing.
Yep.
It's been less about that, and it's been more about, well, he's a good player, so we'll sign him. And I just think in terms of now maybe beggars can't be choosers, and kind of the immediate aim, of course, is to stay in the division, and then you can talk about building a squad. So maybe it is just a case that they have to have as many in their mind good players as possible. But the only thing I would suggest with Newcastle is if you're going to be absolutely like, if you're going to critique their dealings in the window, it's been a bit of a hodgepodge of players like chucked together. Not all bad players. I think some of them is Bruno's a very good player. I
Hmm.
think that Trippier is obviously a very experienced right back. We talked about the Dan Burn and Target. So they're not, they're decent enough players, but I don't like Bruno, for example. The reason I've brought it up there is he plays in a 4-3-3, and they've been playing a 4-4-2. Now, okay, it's like maybe not that much of a systemic change, but
Yeah.
you go from playing in a three-man midfield to playing in a pivot. There is a difference in that. Obviously, it's a different league as well, but that's less tactical, less the tactical side of it. So the only thing I would say with Newcastle is, and this is maybe why they're not guaranteed to stay up, is it's not necessarily been a coherent transfer window. If you're being like completely critical of it and evaluating it, I think
Hmm.
they've obviously had to spend. They know that they're in a position where it's perilous. That they are one of the three worst teams in the league at the moment,
Hmm.
or at least they have been to this point.
Yeah, definitely.
And they know they need to stay in the division because then they can build from there and kind of move up the table and they'll be able to. I think if they go into the championship, it sets them back a few years in terms of the projects and the players they'll have to bring in to obviously get out of there. So they can't go down. They don't want to be doing that.
Yeah, of course.
Um, but I think overall it's been. You'd have to say that if we're setting the criteria, judging them pre-window and post-window,
Mm.
they're of course a better squad and a better team as a result of it. And they've spent 100+ million, so like obviously you would expect that. Um, but I think it's probably more of a longer term thing. As I said, I'm not totally convinced by the manager, and maybe they aren't as well. So it's like maybe we don't want to give this guy the keys and start letting him build the team because we might have to sack him in a year's time.
Yeah.
And to be fair, if we're being like completely fair with our assessment, Man City didn't start doing that until they got Pep Guardiola, and you know he's a winner, and you can go right, you can have the keys, and you can just have what you want and build what you want.
Yeah.
And I suppose maybe you're looking at Newcastle and thinking that's 10 years away for them. You maybe don't start doing that until you're really competing with the big boys and trying to win the biggest honours. Um, but
So there's a few interesting points you make here.
yeah,
First of all, in terms of it being a mishmash of a window, I think assuming Danberg comes in, it really isn't, and I think it confirms that they're gonna actually go to a three at the back system. So I think they start with Dan Burn as a left-sided center back. They start with Matt Target as a left wing back, Kieran Trippier right wing back, as he's been doing with Atletico Madrid. Good pickup, by the way. And then Bruno Guimaraes can play like in a double pivot that also is like, let's say you
supported
go
by that
3-4-2-1 or 3-4-1-2. Let's say you have a big man, little man situation, if you want to call it that. Chris Wood next to San Maximan. That's a way I see them maybe going. So you could have Bruno Guimaraes, let's say, get next Sean or Matty Longstaff, or John just
I think
Shelby.
it'll be Shelby. I think, yeah.
Or you have a flat three system, or even you have a DM in front of the back three, and you just want to keep it really, really tight, and that would be Bruno Guimaraes. But what's definitely going to happen is that Guimaraes will take 75% of the responsibility of midfield operation. But I feel like it's directed towards something, and that something is a three at the back system. It will be interesting to see who starts out of those and then out of the current existing squad. But I don't think it's necessarily a as much a mishmash and we're just gonna buy whoever is available in the market and that's it. I think there's a certain plan there, but it would be a big shift in personnel and chemistry and tactical style that I don't trust them getting a kickstart on the season and picking up points soon enough, or at least I hope they get relegated. You know, if you aren't aware already, but I don't trust them to be able to at least comfortably stay up. They will be in a relegation battle all season. I feel they may find themselves going down because Burnley have themselves a goal scorer, Harry.
Yeah, talk to me about this guy, the 6'6" man mountain they've brought in on deadline day.
So Wout Weghorst, from the glorious lands of the Netherlands. We love the Netherlands. We've had a Dutch, a lovely Dutch man by the name of Reamer here in our Euros episodes back in the summer, and I have a few Dutch friends, so I hold them close to my heart. Weghorst, very interesting profile. I'd say he is extremely tall, 6'6". So in terms of a very physically strong too. So in terms of a Burnley striker profile after losing Chris Wood, spot on. One of those I don't understand Wout Weghorst's decision there, but you know, I mean he knows better what to do with his career. Same with Bruno Guimaraes. I'm baffled by those two's decisions. I find it extremely weird, but we'll see. Only time will tell. I can't judge anything. I'm just a guy on a podcast.
I think from what I was reading about him anyway, part of the reason he didn't have more suitors after him was the fact that his vaccination status, he's not vaccinated. So a lot of clubs, at least in the Premier League, looked to that and thought, we're not going to go near it, if I'm honest, given what's been going on with all the postponements and kind of the havoc that's been wreaking on the league.
Yeah.
It's understandable. As Burnley, I don't want to stereotype here, but they didn't care so much for that. I thought it was interesting as well. So for someone that's 6'6", he actually presses quite well from the front as well, which actually
he's very active in the press. Yeah,
it's interesting with Burnley because obviously people think of them as kind of a low block and clog the middle, and they do those things at time to time, but they actually do press as well, a lot more than people would think. So when you're talking about profiling someone to come in and replace Chris Wood, who actually, if we're being honest, has had a pretty poor season anyway.
Yeah.
So getting 25 million from him and replacing him with this guy, you could suggest that Burnley have actually upgraded
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
that sense.
Absolutely. So I think it's a suitable one for Burnley in terms of his pressing style, because then you could obviously Burnley rely on height and rely on winning second balls and the combative element. So you get one of two results from pressing really, really high and pressing the goalkeeper, right? You either get the goalkeeper lumping it up the pitch, and then you can have the potential of your defenders winning the headers and second ball, or you
Yeah.
can just win it back straight away, force the goalkeeper into a mistake, and then you're in business. And Fake Horst is tireless. He's 97th percentile of all forwards in the top five leagues over the past year in terms of pressures made per game. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think in terms of that, there's a deliberate element there. That's why it's probably taken a little bit of time. They didn't expect Wood to go, so they've taken a little bit of time to evaluate their options. In terms of how he's performed this season, though, it's been a huge drop off for Wolfsburg, who are in a pretty perilous situation in the Bundesliga. Huge, it's gone disastrously for them this season, and for the quality that they have in their squad. I mean, Fakehorst up front had scored 17, 16, and 20 goals for them the 3 seasons before this, and then now he's on 6. They
Hmm.
finished 6th, 7th, and 4th in the past 3 seasons. They're now 15th, and for the amount of quality that they have, it's actually unacceptable. And maybe part of the reason why Wolfsburg let him go is because of how much he dropped off. But in terms of what he's able to do at his best, obviously his goal scoring record speaks for itself. He's outscored his expectations every season for the past 3. Not so much this season. He's underperformed by 3 goals, which is a bit scary. So he'll have to get up and running again in terms of his goal scoring. Now,
Yeah,
if I can put it that way, what a cliche phrase. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, he'll need to start scoring goals fast for Burnley, because if he
they need him
doesn't,
to.
Burnley, yeah,
They need
they
him
need him
to.
to.
They're in trouble. Uh, right at the bottom of the table. They need to start winning games.
Yeah, and that's why I think Burnley will stay up. By the way, because now they have someone who has shown he can score goals, and who kind of fits what Burnley want to do profile wise. So you have a team that's extremely strong defensively, and then couldn't score goals to save their lives. So when they start scoring goals and keep up their defensive record, then they improve on points.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be interesting because, like, just assessing the bottom, I suppose. Like, you've got Newcastle that have spent heavily, and then you've got Watford who've brought in an experienced manager. You've got Burnley who've obviously got Sean Dyche, experienced manager, and as you said, they've brought in someone to replace Chris Wood who is better than what they've got.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you've got Norwich who again I think got a good manager in Dean Smith for kind of the position they're in. So I mean it's going to be really interesting kind of at the bottom of the table seeing who gets out of it because the, I'd say all the teams probably Norwich and Watford to a lesser extent, but they've done all right in this window. Like they've not lost any of their key players really, and well Burnley did, but then they replaced them, and we think with someone that actually could be even better than Chris Wood. So it's gonna be competitive down there. I think. I don't think
Yeah,
this
definitely.
window necessarily has decided who stays up because, as I said, I'm not quite convinced. I'm not as convinced by Newcastle as maybe you are and some other people are that they've got their recruitment spot on. I think there's still gaps in it for what they've spent. And then the other teams probably slightly weaker squads, but there's not a lot between them at the moment. So it's going to be tight. I
Yeah.
want to move from one end of the table to the other. We'll go up to the top and just look at what I think could turn out long term to be one of the best deals of the window, which is Liverpool
All
bringing
right.
in Luis Diaz.
Hmm.
Now, before I let you talk to me about this one, I just want to say, seeing as Arsenal haven't signed anyone in this window, for me to pick a favourite signing is mostly quite difficult. But this one is, and simply for the reason that Tottenham were very close to signing him, pretty much had the deal
Yes.
in front, had it nearly done, and then Liverpool swooped in at the 11th hour and just got it done in front of them. And from what it sounds like, got it done in front of them pretty much because Tottenham's interest was leaked by the media, and the numbers were leaked, and Liverpool thought, okay, we'll have a bit of that right now, and nipped in and got him. And Tottenham even like officially protesting about it, putting out club statements and all sorts. I mean, they're making a habit of this sort of stuff, sour grapes. But I loved it. I absolutely loved it for that reason. But talk to me about the player, Ali. How does he profile? Why have Liverpool gone for him now?
Been tracked by them for a very, very long time, according to Jurgen Klopp anyway. So I think great succession planning given the age profile of our front three now and their contract situations. Trust the fact that they will all renew their contracts, especially Salah. I think Salah is leaving at the end of this season, which is a complete shame because he's still the best player in the world. But Luis Diaz, right-footed, aggressive dribbler, tries to take on defenders in very difficult situations and manages to do so. If you kind of watch him in the Copa America, where he was top goal scorer alongside Messi, he scored one of the goals of the tournament, kind of bicycle kick thing. But the way he's able to get out of very tight situations, by the sideline where you have a couple players stepping in, he would just flick it up and around one of the defenders or between the defenders, and then he's off and running. Extremely skilled. I think of his dribbling style as a Riyad Mahrez type. Someone who wants to take players on and is quite flary, but has a higher skill set in terms of how he can manipulate the ball. He can strike it as well as Mahrez, but you will find him just flicking it up, rainbow flicks kind of thing. Joga bonito. Yeah, I'm excited about this. So in terms of how he fits into the front three, he's obviously going to be a left wing. Who plays with him? I think Sadio Mane will take a little bit of a backseat now.
You think this as soon as this season, or kind of more? Because obviously he's another one that all of the front three are kind of moving towards that point in their contracts where it's either sell or extend, and none of them you could definitively say are gonna get an extension.
I think the most likely is Firmino, but let's move.
Yeah. It is interesting though, like because I've always looked at Liverpool and thought brilliant squad, but a lot of them are at kind of that similar age and they need to start the rebuild. And obviously, a couple of the academy players have come through, and you've signed Jota, who's obviously going to be part of the future.
Yeah.
Trent's an obvious one, but replacing the front three or two of the front three at least, is going to be difficult because they've been such good players for you.
I think it's great succession planning.
We've not seen Diaz kick a ball, but as you've said, the intent is there to kind of start building the next side, the next cycle.
Yeah, and his age profile, we bought him at his peak, is 25. Just turned 25, I think.
Yeah.
This season. And so in terms of what he adds that Sadio Mane probably doesn't is that not that Sadio Mane doesn't have the explosive dribbling, but Sadio Mane does it kind of a stop-start way. So he will stop on it. He will deliberate where he wants to go or how to take on the defender, assess his options. Luis Diaz's decision making is quicker, I think, than Mane, and that's not to discount or say Mane is just a worse footballer than Luis Diaz. They have different skill sets. So what Luis Diaz brings in is some of the attacks that were pretty much held up by Mane, trying or taking longer in decisions. Luis Diaz will be more definitive in transitioning forward, and that's something we kind of lack this season. I anticipate, since we haven't signed a midfielder, and that's something I'll get to because I'm pretty disappointed, but I anticipate that Luis Diaz might start with Sadio Mane in a kind of 4-2-3-1. And that's not something that Sadio Mane hasn't done before. He's done it before with Senegal, where he'll play as the number 10.
Yeah.
So there is a scenario where Mane gets central and then picks up the ball and progresses it because he has the desire, I guess, or
Yeah.
like a certain preference to drop deep and pick it up. So maybe you can add that element to the midfield in a 4-2-3-1. If you play a double pivot of ever injured Thiago Alcantara and Fabinho, I see a scenario where Mane is pretty much a number 10, and then, or someone that will kind of drift to the left if needed. Maybe Philippe Coutinho in a 4-4-2 diamond 16-17 type
Yeah.
towards the end of the season. So, and then Luis Diaz will make more aggressive runs, be more involved in counterattacking rather than build up. So, or like the slow build up kind of thing. I hope that made sense, but
Yeah.
it's it's an exciting prospect for what we are able to do with the front three.
Yeah.
But I'm still I find the fact that we haven't signed a midfielder still pretty questionable.
Well, I suppose there's always more you could do in a window. At
Yeah,
least from what I kind of saw, Liverpool fans weren't expecting anything in this window. I think
not
that
at all.
they were sort of quite negative about it because you don't usually see them invest mid-season. Um, but as we kind of mentioned, they saw an opportunity there to bring something forward, or if they didn't do it now, then Spurs would beat them to it. And it was there to be done, and they've done it. And I think, as I said, I think it's a really good signing. I think it profiles well. I think it makes sense in terms of the succession of the team, the building the next team.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, to give you an
it's
idea
good
on how
business.
much I expected this not to happen, I was streaming on Thursday night, twitch.tv/tacticality. Tacticality, replace the L with the I. There you'll find me streaming Football Manager on Thursday and Saturday nights. Um,
Yeah,
cheeky plug there. Liam, who we're friends with through Discord, and it came in chat and was like, Luis Diaz going to Liverpool. And I was like, nah, it's not going to happen, is it? Checked Twitter, find a few different things, find a tweet saying it's the rumors are quite funny, quote unquote, but then found other rumors that are like, yeah, he's going and it's going to be announced in the weekend. That's Thursday. We're recording on Monday. So that gives you an idea of how much the expectation shifted. I didn't think we'll do anything.
yeah, no, it moved quickly. It moved really quickly, that one.
Yeah.
Um, are there any other transfers or teams that kind of stand out to you in this window where you're well, we'll talk about the positive sides at least. We won't talk about
Yeah.
absolutely shocking transfers, but like ones that you rate.
I don't know if I rate this, but Donny van de Beek to Everton, he is another example of a player that is much better than the club he's going to. Much
Really?
better. Yeah.
I
Donny
don't
van
know
de
how good he is because I've not seen him play. Last time I saw him play was in the bloody 2019 Champions League semi-final, and he was putting that goal
That's his
against
level.
Spurs.
He is
Yeah.
he can be world class and he's still
So
24.
it's interesting, right? So you've probably seen more of him than I have, and you always take these articles that come out with a pinch of salt. But
Yeah.
one of the things that was being discussed in kind of the Man United breakdown and why he wasn't playing is that people on the inside believed that he had physical limitations. They didn't believe he could cover ground well enough. Not just that he wasn't quick enough, but not quite physical enough. Is that something from watching him that you ascribe to at all?
It's fair, but it's not his role. He's been playing in double pivots, midfield threes. No.
Mm.
No. Donny van de Beek's decision to go to Man United is another example of what are you thinking when it happened at the time. He's not that. He plays under the striker. He's a shadow striker or an attacking midfielder at most. You get him close to the penalty area, have him make late runs, or dropping the
So you
playmaking.
think he's more of a number 10 then?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, because it's interesting because I actually played in the midfield three, but that doesn't mean he. I mean, I don't know what his heat maps and average positions were. It doesn't mean he necessarily was box to box. I mean, I've not watched enough of him,
You'll
but
find that Van de Beek is one of those who are the most advanced of the midfield three. Um,
yeah,
making
then I just
he excelled at primarily making late runs into the box.
yeah. I
That
mean,
was
that was
his
the goal he scored
standout
against
quality.
Spurs. So that's kind of, as I said, kind of one of the only times I've really watched him. Was in
And
that
Juventus,
semi-final,
who were a
and he
pretty
scored.
turgid side at the time.
Yeah, and in that run he scored some goals. And I just think if it was pitched to him that you're going to come and play as an attacking midfielder number 10, I would have said, well, you've already got someone doing that and someone doing it for you, pretty well in Bruno Fernandes. It's an unrealistic expectation, not necessarily that you'll play, but that you'll be playing every week. I mean, you've got someone there that's probably at least as good as you, if not better than you. It's like, well, I'm going to assess my options and probably go somewhere else. So it just looks to me like it was a bad signing for Man United, and it was a bad move for him.
Yeah,
And now
absolutely.
he's got the opportunity to go somewhere else in the league and prove that he's got it, because I think it's important that he does it in the Premier League. Like if he goes back to Holland or he goes to Spain or to France, I mean I don't know what clubs are in for him, but say he goes to another country and he does well, I think the same questions will still be there in terms of right, well, can he do it in the Premier League? And I generally hate that saying. Like it does irritate me slightly because it is overused by crap pundits. But in terms of this one, if you harbour physical reservations about him, you probably need to see him do it against Premier League opposition.
Yeah.
Um, I think for Man United, it's a good move in terms of if he does well, either they can sell him permanently or he might come back and get game time free. I think that's much less likely, but
Hmm.
it might show them that potentially they're wrong.
Well, we don't
Yeah,
know who the manager next is going to be, so that'll be
and
interesting.
yeah, well, that's why they didn't want to let him go permanently either, because it was like, well, we don't want to sell anyone. In case the new manager wants him. I mean, the new manager might be Ten Hag, and he might come in and go, well, I know this guy's good. I know I can get the best out of him.
Yeah.
The only thing I would say before we move on, it is interesting in terms of they've signed Van der Beek, and then by the sounds of it, they're going to sign Dele Alli as well, who is a shadow striker. That is the only role he's ever excelled in. Like Spurs have really messed it up over the years recently, trying to play him in kind of deeper roles and get him to be more of a kind of all round. But he just doesn't do that. The only time he was ever like, and he was good for Spurs. I mean, I don't like the guy, but he had a good couple of seasons for them where he was getting into the box and scoring goals and posing a goal threat, and that is what he did. He did not create intricately from deep or win the ball back as some sort of like midfield number 8 or whatever. He was a shadow striker, a support striker. That is what he did. So the only thing I would say is if I look at that, you can't really play those guys in the same team, can you? Especially when you've got Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin that are both presumably going to play as well. I mean, I don't really see how they do it.
And forward wise, Anwar Al Ghazi, Townsend, DeMar Gray.
Yeah,
They're a funny bunch, aren't they? Yeah, it's
they are.
one of those where what's the idea here? But
Not a clue.
speaking of individually sticking with Van de Beek, it's a signing that looks if he's used in the right way under Frank Lampard, who we know is not the greatest tactician of all time, could be a bit transformative, or they will still be stuck in a relegation battle.
I think the likelihood is they get out of it. Not particularly because I rate Lampard, but they've got some good individuals there. They shouldn't really be where they are. They should be in mid-table, if we're being honest. They're better than
However,
some of the teams that are above them.
who's the DM and what's the quality of your centre backs?
Oh no, I mean, like as a team, I don't think they're great, but I think they've got some good attacking players to I think see them through. I'd be surprised if they were still loitering down the bottom of the table in a month's time when he's had a few games. But
I
I mean,
mean,
we'll see.
to be
We'll
honest, I
see.
wouldn't. I wouldn't be surprised.
I know. I remember your predictions, mate.
Yes, sir.
Um, let's move on to teams that have not done well in the window. I'll save Arsenal because obviously I've got a few things to say. Is there any other side that kind of stand out to you in terms of they had an opportunity to do something, they haven't, and they might pay for it?
You can say Leicester City, but I'm not sure where they should have improved.
Mm.
But based on how their season has gone, I wonder if they should have made brought in just a fresh dimension to a certain
I
element
think
of their game.
Leicester.
Let's say
I think Leicester.
midfield.
I think they need a centre back most desperately. If I look at them, they've been conceding
That's
goals
right.
for
Chaglar
fun. I mean,
Soyuncu is not it. Yeah, you're
dreadful.
absolutely
And
right. You're absolutely right.
Vestergaard's been a terrible signing for them as
Yeah.
well. I mean, I just, Fafana, obviously it was very unlucky what happened to him in pre-season and that
Yeah.
they've really missed him this year. That's the position I'd look at them and think they should have done something because they're just conceding too many goals, too many chances, too many goals. Because they're actually scoring quite a lot. They're still creating chances. They've still got good attacking players, but you see, like their game against Spurs, they conceded something like an XG of 4.6. They scored 2 goals at home and lost a game of football. I mean, you just can't be doing that. It's difficult enough to win games anyway. But if you
Yeah,
concede three, yeah, I mean, you got no chance. They were lucky it wasn't more, to be honest with you. It could have been about eight of how many chances they had. I mean, it was
absolutely.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Um,
So
the
yeah,
the
agree
one
with that.
team, well, there's two actually. Man United, obviously, and maybe we'll talk about them in a second. I think West Ham. West Ham, like, it just seems like to me they are doing well. They've got a very, solid group there. But I think they're just content to finish sixth or seventh. If they honestly want to finish in the top four and rival Man United and Spurs and Arsenal, they needed to add to that squad. And it
Yeah.
just seems like to me that they're relying on. And David Moyes has done very well this season. He's and over the last couple of seasons actually. But they haven't brought a single player in. They've got the Europa League in the second half of the season. Um, and it just feels like David Moyes is kind of holding it all by a string at the moment. And the ownership has never been the most ambitious there. I don't think they've run the club at all well over the years. And they've had a chance here to really go out and make a statement and go, we're backing this guy. And you get stuff like they're bidding 50 million for Phillips and Rafinha at Leeds. It's almost like they know it's going to get turned down. Like what is this for goodness sake? Like it's bonkers. I mean
Yeah, it's sort of bizarre.
Leeds would want double that minimum for both of those guys. They're not going to get them for 50 million. I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
Absolutely crazy. It seems derisory. And then there's rumours of them putting in a 50 million bid for Darwin Núñez at Benfica. And it's like similarly, they're not going to sell him for that on the last day of the window. It's just not realistic. So
Yeah. The Darwin
I think they've
Núñez
missed the
one
trick.
seems like a bit of a panic button hitting kind of bid. But one
Yeah,
more team that I thought should do something and didn't is Leeds United. You know how
interesting.
it is there. They haven't brought in anyone essentially. There's someone called Mateo Joseph Fernandez from Espanyol,
Youth player, right?
youth player. They lost
Yeah.
Cody. They lost Cody Drame, who started plenty to Cardiff on loan controversially earlier in the window,
Hmm.
and done nothing since. Maybe in the
They've
next
been stretched all
hour,
season. I
maybe
suppose
in
the
the
thing with
next hour they'll
Leeds.
do something. Who knows? But
Yeah, we
I
got
don't know.
well, as we said at the start, keep an eye on everything. But
Yeah,
I suppose with Leeds, they're not going to get dragged into it. I think they've got too many points on the board already to be in any sort of serious trouble with a relegation battle. So
hmm
maybe they're just looking at it thinking, I mean, Phillips is out for a while longer, I think, isn't he? So,
yeah.
but Bamford will be back soon. They'll get players back. They have really been stretched recently.
Yeah.
Um,
Shout out also before we move on to the next big two topics. Brentford bringing in Christian Ericsson.
yeah,
Just glad for him he's passed the medical and been able to come back
yeah.
and play professionally.
Yeah,
Just
even as an
really looking forward
ex-Spurs
to him.
player, obviously, like that sort of stuff goes out the window when you have what went on in the summer with him, and it's just good to see him back and playing football because you spoke about Dele Alli earlier. I think Dele Alli doesn't have the career he's had without someone like Christian Eriksen in the team doing
Mm,
all the creative work in that Spurs side. You saw like once he declined, and I know he stayed there till the middle of the 2019-20 season, but by then he obviously wanted to go and he diminished as kind of a player. Um, the whole team was worse for it. If I'm being fair in my judgment, he was an excellent player for Spurs.
yeah,
And on a human level, as you said, it's good to see him back and playing football at the top level.
yeah. And then you have Aston Villa bringing in Callum Chambers and Robin Olsen over the week. Um,
Yeah, it's just a strange one, the Chambers one, because firstly, because nobody knew anything about it, and secondly, Chambers is a weird player because I don't think he's not great, but he's kind of he's decent. He's all right. Like he's an okay centre back and an okay right back. He's not brilliant. I mean, he kind of just is a squad player, and I think that's what he'll be for Villa. He'll maybe cover two positions. And I put it this way, right? From an
hmm,
Arsenal perspective, I would much prefer to have him at the club than Cedric, who we've still got on the books. I mean, we've had to get rid of three right backs because we cannot get rid of this guy because we put him on a 4-year deal,
yeah,
and the third or fourth highest wages at the club, I think, something like 75k a week. I mean, it's just bonkers.
yeah,
But on Chambers, yeah, it's okay. It's decent enough, and obviously they brought in Coutinho as well. I mean, Villa have brought in a lot of players this season, so I think obviously they struggled a bit earlier in the season. Part of it, I think, was the players need time to settle in and kind of play together for a bit. They seem to be getting better. Gerrard's doing a good job there.
Hmm.
He's got them organised. I don't think they're particularly free flowing yet. I've got to be honest. I think they're a bit more solid than anything. But maybe that comes with Coutinho and they get Bailey back. I mean, Bailey's hardly played as he's been injured quite a bit.
Yeah.
But they've had a solid window. You'd say Luca Dean obviously as well. They brought in.
And Coutinho is
Um,
just one of those that elevates the team to a whole new. The game against Man United, right? You can see the difference between Coutinho and Buendia. With all respect to Buendia, but Coutinho's just on another stratosphere, even though he's had the grease.
I mean, I was happier to see Villa take a risk on Coutinho than I would have been if Arsenal had done it. But
Yeah,
he's still a very good player. Like you don't lose that
absolutely.
overnight. He's had a few tough years with top clubs. Let's be honest. I mean, it doesn't mean you're a bad player if you don't quite make it at not Real, Barcelona and Bayern Munich.
Still Champions League winner with Bayern.
Still, he
Played a
still won the
huge
Champions
role
League
in
with
that.
Bayern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
So
just to acknowledge the final two big ones before we move on to Man United and Arsenal. Kulusevski, who I think is one of the weirder
Spurs,
transfers of
yeah,
the window, yet another winger. It means
yeah,
maybe Lucas at wing back, Harry? Lucas at wing back? Maybe. But they did bring in a very important signing, Rodrigo Bentancur.
yeah.
Hugely needed in midfield, someone who is you can make him a defined anchor. Ball winner who is very capable of that. Um,
hmm
those two coming in from Juventus, yeah, big
It's
signing there for
interesting with Spurs because on the one hand, you could go, well, Conte wanted Traore and he wanted Diaz, and he didn't get either of them, and it all seemed like a bit chaotic in terms of they lurched quite quickly from one target to the next, and I think with a manager like Conte who doesn't necessarily demand specificity, so to speak, he's not particularly like Klopp or Pep or from what we've seen Arteta where they want very specific things from players. I think Conte's a bit more like he wants the attitude side of it in particular. You have to buy into what he's doing. I think you can probably get away with it as a director of football with the guy they've got. But what I'd say with Spurs quickly is that they've actually done something. They've actually
yeah,
shown the initiative to improve their squad, and part of it was they had to. Conte would have demanded upon coming in. I think that much was obvious, and certainly made it obvious in any interviews and press conferences he did in the weeks leading up to the window and during it.
yeah,
Um, but they've done it. They're the only team out of West Ham, Man United, and Arsenal that have actually signed anyone. They've actually improved their squad. We talk about where were they prior to it, where are they now? Okay, they've let a few players go. None of them were playing, so I don't think you could argue that they're worse off. That who knows how these guys are going to do when they come in, but at least they've shown an attempt to improve their squad. They've gone out there and they've actually done something and gone, we want to get fourth, and we're going to give this manager what he wants within what we can do. And I'll give them credit for that. Now we'll have to see how it plays out over the rest of the season, and
yeah, of course.
time will win the argument on that one. But at least they've tried to do something.
Uh, have Arsenal tried to do something?
No, they haven't. To be honest with you, it's been such a strange window from Arsenal because all the noises coming out of the club at the start of it were quite positive. Okay, maybe it wasn't realistic that we were going to get Vlahovic. I think that much became quite obvious quite quickly. But you thought, okay, at least they've recognised we're in a position where we're right there for top four. Doesn't mean we're guaranteed to get it, but we're no less likely than the teams around us. We've got a fighting chance, and you've got a squad there that is good. You've got a good core. Well, I say good squad. You've got a good team, good core, but the squad's been stretched in recent weeks, and it needs a few additions. And you saw it in that two-legged tie against Liverpool and that game against Burnley. It was on its knees by the end of it. You had players that had played every single minute of all the games in January, and it's just ridiculous. And essentially, all we've done in January is trim the wage bill. I mean, okay, so as it stands, right? As it stands, we let Chambers go, which we already mentioned. Kolasinac, Mari, Maitland-Niles, Balogun's gone on loan, which is obviously absolutely fine, no problem with that. And then the big one's Aubameyang, which is scheduled to be completed tonight, and he's going to go to Barcelona. If you go through all of those individually, I don't have a problem with any of those players going. Like, I really don't. Like, none of them start for us.
Pablo
None
Mari
of them
going
are.
would have.
No problem. Absolutely no problem.
Yeah, out
Take
the
him.
door you go.
Absolutely no issue. But the issue is But now we've got 18 outfield players on the books at Arsenal. It's not a big enough squad.
Why
To quite simply
you
put.
have two players coming in, Lino Souza
At the end of the season.
and
At the end of the
Austin
season.
Trusty.
Not till the end
Oh,
of the
both of
season.
them at the end of the season.
Matt
Oh
Turner
no.
Matt Turner's coming in, and this American defender.
Yes.
Trusty's coming in at the end of the season. I mean, God knows. I mean, I don't know how good they're going to be, but the point is that we're going to have to get. I know we've only got league games now. There's no Europe and there's no FA Cup, so it really is just a shootout in the league. We're going to have to get so lucky with injury. I mean, you've got a striker in Lacazette who doesn't score, but also physically is limited. He can't do more than 70 minutes to a good standard. You've then got someone in Nketiah who's not been good enough ever and is running down his contract deliberately to get a payday in the summer. And he's first drop and he has 0 goals this season. We look light up front. Midfield, I can sort of look at it and go, well, if Xhaka and Partey stay fit, or at least you have one of them all season, you can muddle through. There are options, I think, in centre midfield where we can just about manage. Up front, we're really going to struggle, I think. And it might be a case you got to try something funky. It might have to be Martinelli. It might have to be Pepe. Like, they're going to have to find internal solutions to it because none of it is ideal. And I think the bit that irritates me most with the striker situation is we've known about Aubameyang since, I think, the 10th or 11th of December was the first game he was excluded for. I think they knew at that point his Arsenal career was over. They didn't plan on picking him again. And I think that's probably when they thought, okay, we're going to have to try and sign someone in January. And they maybe looked a bit more closely at Vlahovic and some of the others and thought, okay, maybe we can move these forward from the summer. Now, I'm not losing my shit that they haven't gone and paid a release clause for Alexander Isak of 75 million or whatever it is, because that's a lot of money and he's only got 4 goals this season. But what I would say is they've had a month and a half, if you go back to that date I've just said, to find a striker that basically is better than Eddie Nketiah for the rest of the season and someone that can share the minutes with Lacazette, maybe push him, maybe, and it comes to the summer, Lacazette's out of contract, Nketiah's out of contract, and Aubameyang's gone. We're going to need to sign 2 strikers anyway, if we're being realistic. So maybe they become one of them. And then you do your big signing in the summer, whether it's Calvert-Lewin or Isak or Jonathan David or whoever. I don't really care, to be honest with you. I'm not a scout. I can't tell you who the best is out of those guys. But what I can tell you is when you've got 2 guys that have scored 3 goals between them all season, and you've got a young squad that have played a lot of minutes for players their age this season, it just seems to me like we've waved the white flag at 4th. We've kind of gone, well, that wasn't the expectation at the start of the season. You know, nobody expects us to finish 4th. So if we finish 6th, we're still on track for our project. And maybe that's like fine. Maybe they don't want to do short-term deals, but I just can't look at this window in any sort of positive light other than they've got some wages off the books, which we've got billionaire owners. I mean, like, seriously, that can't be the priority. If they have any sort of ambition and want to do something this season, there had to be signings. And with an hour and a half left, it doesn't look like there's going to be. So the only positive, I think, is that Man United and West Ham haven't done anything either. So it's like maybe we haven't fallen behind them, but I wanted us to steal a march on other teams, Ali, and we just haven't done. And it really disappoints me.
On the other hand, the Cronkies rounds are going to the Super
I know,
Bowl.
I watched that last night, actually. Or this morning.
Oh, really?
Because I don't really watch American football at all, if I'm honest. I don't really know what's going on. But in some sort of weird convoluted way, I thought, well, if they get to the Super Bowl, then maybe they'll go and spend 80 million on transfer deadline day in sort of a celebratory mood.
You were too optimistic there.
I know. This is what the transfer window's done to us Arsenal fans, Ali. I mean, you've got people tracking Alexander Isak's like number plates in London. I mean, it's just wild. Like, honestly, people fly off the handle with it. I'm to be honest with you, I'm glad it's going to be over soon because, yeah, I transfer windows are tough, man. Fuck me, like they put you through the ringer.
Yeah, they do. They really do. Yeah, shame that. Yeah, Arsenal have dealt with it that abysmally.
It's been a really bad. And Man United as well. Like similarly,
tell you what, my top 4 prediction for Tottenham is holding true.
It does, and I must say,
nothing either.
I'll make it clear. I said that in the podcast, didn't I? I said it between Arsenal and Tottenham, it's dependent on transfer business. And okay, we don't know if Spurs' signings are going to be good, but their squad is at least the same size as it was prior to the window. Ours is smaller. We've actually made ourselves weaker because the likes of Chambers and Maitland-Niles, they're not great players, but they actually provide backup. And okay, Aubameyang hasn't been playing, but he's better than Nketiah. Like, had he stayed, it was never realistic. He was never going to get reintroduced. But he's better than... He's a better striker than both of Lacazette and Nketiah. We play better with Lacazette in the team, so I do understand it. But it's just disappointing. But as you said, your prediction's looking good for Spurs to finish in the top four. I mean, they're looking good. They've done some business at least.
They have, and Man United haven't.
Man
well,
United
they've
haven't.
done in terms of outgoings. Axel Tuanzebe, Anthony Martial, Ama Traore, and Donny van de Beek.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because that Man United squad has gone from looking like pretty big, pretty deep, if not brilliant, to actually quite lightweight. And obviously, given recent events, and we won't talk about the individual in question, but that's another player obviously out the frame. Mm-hmm. And now they've got a much shallower squad than what they had. And they've got FA Cup and the Champions League. So, like, they're similar to Arsenal, but with a few more players, but obviously more to compete with. You know, they've got more competitions they need to juggle. And it's similar. I think it's similar in terms of the ownerships. Like, they want to balance the books. They want to make their money. They're not going to take undue risk and spend, well beyond their means. I don't think anyone expected Man United. Did you expect them to spend big in January? I mean, I didn't.
Nope.
I certainly didn't. I thought most they might get one player, but
I think what they're trying to do is, they will always try to save money. That's in it. That's to me.
And then in the summer,
looks like the nature of the Glazers. So what they're trying to do is Martial goes to Sevilla, gets a lot of game time now. Then they can sell him off for a good fee.
And they get the wages off the books as well. That's the other thing. Till the end of the season, they've got something like 450K's worth of wages off the books, given the players that have gone out.
I think the fact that they haven't signed a defensive midfielder is absolutely disgraceful.
They'll sign Declan Rice for 100 million in the summer, and it'll be like 30 million too much, and they'll have done it too late. But that's the way they work. They're reactive. They did it with Sancho. Like, they signed Sancho probably 2 years after they should have signed him in the first place, and it's not worked out since, obviously. But that is the way they are. They're reactive. I honestly think the Glazers take decisions based on what they think not like fans' happiness will be like, but the reaction to it. They want to get shirt sales. They want to get like hits online. They care about all that PR stuff. I don't really think they're in football to win. They're in football to make money. They're in football to, globalize a brand. They're in it for all the wrong reasons, as a lot of these people are.
And the problem is that they failed at that too. Like, I was listening to or watching a Tifo video earlier today talking about United. Not in the nature of the podcast to shout out other people, but this was pretty informative in terms of, yes, we know that Man United really, really care about their PR status and their commercial growth, and they've grown by twice since the Glazers took over, I think in 2013, but as has everybody else. So they've taken United from a position where they were dominating Europe, getting to Champions League finals every single year, huge advantage on everyone else commercially in the Premier League, to they're kind of the same as everybody else, growth-wise at least. They're behind Man City now in terms of commercial revenue, something like that. But like commercially, they're second best to Man City now. They have failed that too.
Yeah, they've run the club badly. I mean, it's nothing new. Like, there's parallels between Man United and Arsenal, because Man United, they're barely in the top four, whereas Arsenal, like, from a lower budget, they're still a big club, but they're not the commercial size of Man United. The Kroenkes have run the club badly. They didn't put any money in. They appointed the wrong people, and then you find yourself out of Europe, and now they have to spend to get back in Europe. So it's like, eventually it does catch up with you. If the Glazers continue to run Man United the way they are, they will somehow manage to get one of the biggest clubs in England and in the world into a position where they're not guaranteed Champions League football. And
they already have. They were in the Europa League final this summer.
There you go. And that'll become a consistent. They'll go out for a few years if they keep doing what they're doing.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't mind that as an Arsenal fan. You probably
Me
wouldn't
neither.
mind it as a Liverpool
No,
fan.
I would absolutely love it.
But objectively speaking, I think it's a disgrace. I think it's an absolute disgrace the way they've run the club. I mean, it's just diabolical. I think we'll leave it there for today, Ali. Thanks for joining me.
Enjoyed that.
Well, I can't say I enjoyed it given our lack of dealings on Chance of Deadline Day.
It was a good discussion, and I have to say, just quickly, we know we haven't covered every single club. It's an hour or so long podcast, so it's pretty hard to do that. But if your club hasn't been mentioned, they've made a big signing, at least from your perspective, or there's a big outgoing and we haven't mentioned it, it doesn't mean it didn't happen. We try to cover the base as much as possible. But Julian Alvarez to Manchester City, every single one of you Premier League top 6, you've let him go to Man City, who already are just running away with everything. You're a disgrace for letting him go to Man City. Free run. Outrageous.
Poor business. Outrageous. That pretty much sums up Arsenal's transfer window. Thanks for joining me, Ali.
Of course.
Thanks for listening, guys, and we'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.